Hello there, and welcome to another weekly market update from Gandalf. Um, so, interesting week that we've had after the wild week in crypto the week before. So, just to summarize what we talked about last weekend, we had highlighted this area as a resistance area 41, 42K. It was support, major support, flipped as resistance. And we believe that there's pretty significant support around this 30. I'd say it's a pretty deep zone, so 30 to 28k. And we're expecting some range behavior between these levels, and that's exactly what we've got. So we had one range boundary there, second range boundary, third, call that a range boundary, four. So this is extremely mature range now. You could even put in a little triangle structure as well that's happening here, um, which can happen in these type of consolidations. So um, yeah, interesting. So there's it's a really interesting week because there's pretty clear differences, opinions of what this structure looks like and what's going to happen. Um, there's a lot of bears out there, and there's still some bulls and there's bulls that are just more kind of bullish because just purely for hope than anything, right? So let's take a look at what both the bears and the bulls are looking at here. So if you're let's take a look if you're a bear. So if you're a bear, we've had this huge run where we've had these kind of set of trend lines that have been gradually getting steeper. Um, until we reached this kind of crazy steep trend line and we broke it down. And if you're a bear, you're thinking from that breakdown of this kind of trend, and we've got this little wedge as well happening here. You want to trade this bearish now. So you get this first impulse, you look for the 618 GP retracement, you take a short around the GP right there, and you look to break this first impulse down. And that's like, it worked out perfectly for the bears. I saw this setup, which is why I was extremely cautious. I sold a lot of volts here, sold some BTC, sold some ETH. I actually even took a short position here. I took profits here though. But the difference here is I was expecting some major support around here. So we broke this bear wave was huge. We broke down that support. So if you're a bear now, we're looking at potentially another kind of consolidation before we make another wave to the downside. If you're a bear, so what we were looking at, we now have this pretty powerful downtrend, and to this lower high is now the pivotal area in the market. Right above this, we can potentially flip this bullish, but as long as we remain below this, there's potential for a bearish setup here. So we made this wave. We've got this triangle consolidation here. Looks like just a pullback. So quite feasibly, we could break down from this to next supports, which will be at some point, somewhere in this range here. Um, I mean, if you're uber bearish, you're thinking 20k. I personally don't think there is a possibility of 20k, but if it depends on how bearish you are, I guess. Not only that, I saw another chart somewhere as well that was highlighting this. So we've got kind of the head, the left shoulder, and then we're potentially building a head, right hand shoulder to then break down to that level. And that's something else I've seen some bears posting. So let's be honest, I can see the bearish setup. I can see it. It's there on the 4 hour time frame. But as soon as I go to higher time frames, I start to get dubious about this bear setup. I really do. And mainly because we've got this wide range, we broke out of it, we've barely had. This is the first impulse wave of a trend, and you can expect a pullback. And I just think the strength of this impulse wave, just the sheer demand for Bitcoin, the fundamental case for Bitcoin is as good as it's ever been. And I just can't see, and there's so much money that missed out on this run that is looking for this dip to buy into, right? And I just think if we were ever to get back to these prices, with this support here, I think it would get bought up hard by big money and smart money. And I just don't. I see the bear setup, but I am still extremely cautious. I wouldn't take any bear trades here. Not while we're just above a support. I just don't think that's just not how you trade, right? If you took a bear trade here on this pullback at the top of this range, that makes a lot of sense. You can keep this trade, look for a breakdown, take some profits when we hit this zone here. But right now, if you're not in up here, do not. I just wouldn't trade it bearish here. So let's take a look if you're a bull, because it looks like a better area. If you were bullish, this looks like a potentially better area to buy. So let's take this out. There is a trend, so we've got some peaks here. It looks like we are still somewhat, we have this kind of trend line. We haven't broken this support down, so this is pretty major support. So that's a reasonably bullish sign. Another kind of, I guess, bearish sign is we rejected this 200-day moving average again, is a slightly bearish trend. So if you're looking at the higher time frames, it kind of looks like we are building this consolidation really. We've got this kind of downtrend line. We have this uptrend line as well. So it's not looking, too bad. And I like this setup. I think maybe what we're doing here is, impulse. We do something like that potentially. So that's kind of what my bias is right now. And actually, when we look at the chart here, I think we have looks, this is not what you would want to see. If you're a bear in this kind of range, looking at the lower time frames, you want to see price get right back down here and hang out down here before breaking it down. And that's not what we're getting. Anytime we get down here, we're finding some bulls. So I actually do think we have a potentially reasonably bullish setup here, in my opinion. And like I said, I see the bear side. I just don't think it's going to play out, and I think a lot of bears potentially could get caught out here. We could have a somewhat of a face rip type rally here that will surprise a lot of bears. And so this is what I think will happen. I think we get back to the top of this range. We look to get to this 200-day moving average. We do some kind of accumulation, but this time we break it higher, and I think we can hit some resistances. So where can we get to? Let's pull some Fibonacci's. Let's go from support to resistance. Sorry, so support to resistance. Let's go the other way around. Actually, sorry. Okay. So this range is pulled back to the 382, and I think it's quite feasible we can get to this 618 level. So let's take a look at that. Also corresponds to this area here. So this is pretty strong. There's probably some supply up here. So I do think 48 to 50k is where I expect Bitcoin to head to in the short term. I think we'll start to face the pressure of this downtrend line. So what I think could potentially happen is we make a new kind of on the higher time frame, a range boundary up here at this kind of supply level, and then from there we can maybe hang out here, find some supply, and head back down to supports again. So make somewhat of a retracement. And that's another buying opportunity, and we can break this thing higher eventually. So I think basically the next 2-3 months, I think crypto is going to be it's going to be rangy, right? We're going to have some big up waves, we're going to have a down wave. So you want to, if you're actively trading this market, I think you want to be playing both sides. Right now, I think this is the time to be bullish. I wouldn't be bearish down here. When we get back up here and we hit some of these resistance levels, some supply zones, I think you can start to get bearish again. Personally, all I've done here is I've bought here a few alts, some more Bitcoin, some more Ethereum. what I buy down here, I think I'll take it off when we get up there. So those are some nice trades. I mean, look, if you picked up some here, you're talking about a 50% move in Bitcoin. With some altcoins, you're talking about much higher percentages, right? So if we make a 618 retracement with, and you can see I've already done some markings here on Ethereum. I still think we've maintained this trend line in Ethereum just about. So if you bought some Ethereum down here, that's again a 65% move. If you look at Atom, and if we think we're going to make a 618 retracement with Atom, we're talking about a 140% move. So there's some nice moves to catch here if this move in Bitcoin occurs, like I think it will occur. Okay, so that's my view on Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm bullishly tainted. I gave you the bear picture. The bear picture is we hang out here, we break down of this range, we build this kind of head and shoulders type structure, and we head back down to 20k. That's the bear. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think this bull run is over. So this is what I believe may occur. We'll end up building this kind of consolidation structure on the higher time frames, and then eventually at some point later this year, I'm not sure exactly when, maybe the end of summer, we will make some moves to break this key resistance level, which is 60k. And once we do that, we can make some new all-time highs. So that's my view on Bitcoin. That was quite lengthy, but I wanted to explain both sides and where I sit. Just looking at the indices, stock indices. So stock market's been boring, frankly. I'm not interested in this just chop that we've been getting. I think crypto's been way more interesting to trade. But I am pretty convinced that we are about to get an almighty bear wave coming up soon. I'm just not exactly sure how it's going to happen. It may coincide. We may get, say, the risk assets like Bitcoin and stocks seem to be relatively correlated. So if the stocks were crashing, I don't expect Bitcoin to be saved. I think Bitcoin would go down. So maybe when Bitcoin gets up here, you may coincide a stock market down move with this downward movement in Bitcoin potentially. But I just don't like the look of this low grind chop higher. It's just more and more risk is getting piled on. I've had a look at some sentiment analysis of hedge funds and smart money, and they're, for the first time since COVID bottomed, funds and smart money are the sentiment is bearish as well. So I see this type of structure. So we built this kind of wedge, and we're just straddling underneath this wedge. There's a similar wedge in kind of NQ as well that I've seen. It actually looks similar to how Bitcoin broke down with a wedge. So we had this wedge structure here. We then built this lower high, and that's where we got this bear wave. I see something similar in both ES and NQ, right? We've had this wedge structure. We're building this lower high point, and if we confirm this as a lower high, we've kind of struggled to break this area. Anytime we dip above, we're selling off a little bit. If we do build a lower high here, I think that is bad. I think that's really bad on the higher time frames, and we can finally make that move to some supports, and that's for NQ. For ES, we can finally get that huge downward movement to 3,500, which is where I've been looking for. And I've got lots of cash on the sidelines. I'm waiting for this dip. I'll buy some leaps, buy some. I think we'll find some good support around here. So that's option one. That's how we break down. The other option is we could squeeze. I think shorts are piling in here again. It's pretty clear. The shorts are coming in here. We could squeeze them one more time. Do something like this. That could happen, and then we can break down like that potentially. So I'm just not sure how this is going to happen. I may take some bearish trades next week to try and play, and I'm talking 2 months out puts. If we break, say, this level here, I'll stop out on NQ. So that would be yeah, if we break above the 786 on NQ, I'll stop. If we, I think we're at the 786 or broken above the 786. So all-time high on ES, stop out. But I may take a look at potentially opening up some bear trades, just because the risk reward is nice. We're so close to a potential stop area that if I took 20-30 points in ES, if I took some long dated puts, maybe I lose 10-20% of the trade. I put 5% of my portfolio in. I'll lose 1% of my account on the trade, which is fine. But the reward potentially, if we did make a lower high and we got to move even back to support, I mean, you're looking at making double your trade, so at least 5-6%. So the risk reward is in your favor here to make a stab at a bear trade. If you're long and if you believe we're going to continue grinding the market higher like that, then I mean, there's no harm in taking some hedges here as well. So I'd say I am short-term bullish on Bitcoin. I think we head back down to some resistances. Stock market, very hesitant. I think neutral to bearish for the stocks. And I'm waiting for my chance to buy. And it will come. It always comes. You just have to be patient. So, okay. I think we're about 16 minutes in. So, yeah, stay safe. I am bullish Bitcoin. Let's hope we get what I think is going to happen this week. And stay safe trading. Thanks.